I set you the challenge of playing just with 2 points of contact on your bow. The hair at the bottom of this first finger and then on this joint here. And I suggested that if your bow hold normally has anything else on it, that you need to know why it's there and what it's doing. So my bow hold definitely does have other things on there usually. My thumb is definitely normally resting on the stick, and it's there for 2 reasons. Partly because it's just a sensible place to keep it, isn't it, rather than having it up in the air. It doesn't need to grip the stick, but it can sit there quite happily. But it's also a really good indicator of how much tension there is in the rest of your hand. If your thumb is at that sort of angle, it introduces all sorts of tension into here in your wrist. And if your thumb is at that sort of angle, the chances are that the hair here is no longer sitting at the base of your first finger. So it's helpful having your thumb at a right angle, even though it's not gripping the stick. I've also got my ring finger, maybe not always on the hair, but certainly hanging about in that general vicinity. Because if we haven't, the main disadvantage of this bow hold, we get a great sound. We can control the dynamic, we can make it louder, we can make it quieter, but I can't ever take the bow off the string. I'm stuck unless I bring my ring finger up, and it helps to take some of the weight. It helps also to support the weight when we're playing really, really quietly. So I use this finger when I'm coming up to the end of a bow and I want the bow to come off the string but for the string to carry on resonating. I'm definitely using my ring finger to lift that off. But generally, he's not doing anything at all, even if it lives on the hair. I wonder what other things you've got on your bow hold normally and what they're doing. It's perfectly acceptable. I don't care if you've got your foot on your bow, as long as there's a reason for it being there and you can explain precisely what job it's doing and why you couldn't possibly do that job without it in that place. One other thing we need to think about is the way we change bow when we get to the end, the heel, when we get to the end at the tip. So you can practice this without the vial. This is for when your neighbours are asleep. As I'm getting to the heel, there isn't a kind of everybody stop, complete static, pause, everybody turn around and go back. As I'm approaching the heel, these 2 fingers here are going to carry on a forward bow, aiming towards the wall over there, but my wrist is just going to start to open out, ready for the next back bow. If you start a back bow at the heel with your wrist in here, the first thing we hear is that horrible crunch while your wrist has to sort itself out to go in the other direction. So as you're getting to the heel of the bow, 2 fingers carry on that way, wrist already starting to open out. And as you get to the other end, the same 2 fingers carrying on towards the palm of your hand and your wrist starting the forward bow. So there's never a completely static moment. There's not loads and loads of flapping about here because that just introduces all sorts of waywardness into the sound, but neither is it solidly in place. So you could practice just supporting the bow with 1 finger. That really fluid change at either end. Great to practice if you've got the innominate part. You make a beautiful sound and then you come up to the bow change and you think, please don't let it crunch now. If you employ that system, you can guarantee that you'll get a really smooth bow change. One of the other most basic things we need to think about if we're talking about getting our best quality basic sound in place is the distance from the bridge. So on my A string then, There's a good sound. Now if I come nearer the bridge, it's gone. Here it is. If I come away from the bridge, it's gone again. So there's my good sound on the A string. If I take that position and I move down to the G, it's terrible. Now that's partly because I'm playing a completely gut-strung viol, so my bottom strings are really thick. Can't play anywhere near as close to the bridge on them. They're just much too tight as you get closer to the bridge. Even if you've got metal wound bottom strings, the place that is the best sound on one string won't be the same place on the others. So on that G, I was much further from the bridge. But if I took that place and played on the top string, it's not a great sound, is it? For that top string, I need to be much closer to the bridge. Now obviously it depends a bit on how much pressure you put on, it depends on how much bow you use, of course it does. But there's a fundamental basic level at which you know you can get a good quality sound. And the thing is that when we're busy reading the music or when we're busy wondering about what this hand is doing, we forget. So it's worth spending some time just finding out or reminding yourself what is the best quality sound that you have on each of your strings. It's crucial for moments like when you're playing in a concert and you start, you've got the opening theme and you think everybody's watching me and I want to make a really nice sound. You've got to know, where is it that I'm going to put my bow on that string that guarantees that this instrument makes a nice sound. If you've never spent any time finding that out, then when it comes to that moment you need to rely on it, it's not going to be there. So spend some time getting to know each string of your viol, and I would say particularly spend more time on the top strings because they're the precarious ones, aren't they? What's the best sound on your top string? And once you've found it, never settle for anything less.